Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Windows Weekly is provided by Cachefly at CACHEFLY.com. This is Windows Weekly with Paul Thurrott, episode 47 for January 25th, 2008, The Red Show. Windows Weekly is brought to you by Audible.com. For your free audiobook, visit audible.com/Windows. And by listeners like you. Thanks for your donations. He's back from France. I'm back from death's door. And it's time for another Windows Weekly.
We're going to get through one of these intros without me laughing.
I traveled a little farther than you did. To hell and back. But, I guess everybody's getting that cold.
Yeah.
In fact, the doctors now are saying it's a flu cold. Or a fold. Or a flold. A flold. Or a flu, but it's apparently they have a name, some sort of respiratory distress illness or something. Just be glad you
it's a pandemic.
Didn't get it. It is. It's a pandemic.
No, I've been on the edge of a cold for a long time. I keep waiting.
Well, fortunately, you can't catch anything through Skype.
Yet.
They're working on it though.
They'll be in 3.0.
That's the Skype contagious version. So, Paul, when you go to France, do you keep up with the Microsoft news, or is it, out of sight?
Well, I can't ever truly go away. But yeah, I try to just make sure nothing serious is going on. It would be just my luck. Microsoft will ship a public beta version of the next version of Windows while I'm away or something like that. But this was just a quick trip over a weekend, so I didn't worry about it so much over Saturday, Sunday. But Thursday and Friday, I just kind of checked in a few times to make sure nothing important was happening.
Yeah. And did anything important happen?
No, not to my knowledge.
Well, there was this thing called Macworld Expo, but I guess you probably don't really
Well, that happened before I left.
Oh, it did? Okay.
Yeah. That was Tuesday, I think. And I spent much of the day Tuesday concerned with Macworld, as you might imagine, being a Windows guy. But actually, I did, and I think it's important to do that because, of course, Apple releases products that aren't just for the Mac, and of course discussed a bunch of products that work fine with Windows. And they also talked about a new MacBook, and I was very interested in that because I'm in the market for a laptop, and I was curious to see if this new MacBook would meet my needs. And not to get off on the wrong foot immediately, but I have to say I don't understand that this meets the needs of anybody. I'm very confused by this.
I know what you mean. It's I wouldn't buy one. In fact, I just bought a new MacBook to update it because I had the original one. But I looked at the Air, and I got much more for less. But it's
now. When you say MacBook, do you mean a MacBook or a MacBook Pro?
A MacBook. I like the size, and that's why I was a little disappointed by the Air because I wanted something small.
I'll just throw this out. This won't mean a lot to many people listening, and I apologize to that for that. But Apple a few years back had a product that I felt was the perfect sub-notebook computer, and it was the 12-inch PowerBook G4.
You must be listening to Merlin Mann because that's all he's. That's all he wants.
Oh, is that what he's saying? Yeah. Okay, so I didn't know that, but I still have one for some reason. I don't ever use it because it's horribly out of date now. But it was a great size,
perfect,
great weight, great battery life.
It had a spindle.
Same keyboard that they're still using today, really, at least on the MacBook Pro side, and as far as the size of the keys and so forth, and optical drive, removable battery, removable RAM. Et cetera, et cetera. So I don't know. I don't get it. More than one USB port.
It's for the Prada set. I think it really is for people who are very style conscious and aren't obviously power users.
So
I don't know.
My problem with that is that but here's the thing. We're careening toward this recession, and
bad timing.
This doesn't seem like the product for today. Yeah. It really doesn't. And I think that if they had done something along the lines of the MacBook, which I also have one of, and I like quite a bit. In fact, in my looking around online and researching notebooks, I actually do keep coming back to the new MacBook.
It's very competitive. It's fast. It's got a decent video card.
Yes, it's a nice size and weight. Nice size screen. The keyboard's nice.
Like I
it runs Windows and the
I
Mac.
bought a new one. I usually wait till Macworld just to see what if there's anything compelling. Had they done a 12-inch, I might have jumped. But
you have to think that the MacBook Pro, at least, the other MacBook Pros, the 15 and 17-inch, are probably going to pick up that multi-touch trackpad fairly soon. I don't know if that will come down to the MacBook in the next few months. But I wonder if this is the right time for me to buy a new MacBook. But I don't know.
The multi-touch is limited to iPhoto right now, and I don't think it's compelling in the same way it is on the iPhone.
No, it's not pervasive. So anyway, this sounds like a horrible sidetrack, but I'll
tell you one thing that was kind of interesting. Macworld magazine did a head-to-head comparison with a Sony TX, which is their ultra lightweight, and interestingly, a Sony TX comparably configured, except for the ports, which it has admittedly many, many more of. Was much more than the Air. So as pricey as the Air seems, it's about $500 less than a comparably priced.
But to me, the big deal on all that stuff is I don't care that they don't include an optical drive, but I do care that there's no expansion slice you can attack onto the bottom of it with an extra battery and an extra optical drive. That would remove my complaints about the drive and the removable battery, which I think is ludicrous. You can't upgrade the RAM, which it's instantly obsolete. I don't.
Yeah, I put 4 gig in my MacBook so I could run Windows.
Yeah, of course. And I just I don't get it. I know. I know this. It's not for me, and I'm having a trouble understanding it, but I just don't get it.
Yeah.
It's not just the cost. The cost is only one aspect of it. I get that, smaller things are more expensive. That's not a.
It's beautiful. I mean, I've handled it, and you feel it, and you go, wow, really.
What do you think about the black keyboard on the light, material around it?
No, it looks beautiful. It's not black.
Looks okay.
It's a silver keyboard. It looks beautiful.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Okay. No. There's no aesthetically. Apple has hasn't stumbled in ages. Not since the eMate, probably. Not since Johnny Ive joined their design team. And this is a design wonder. In fact, it's interesting because it is actually thicker than it looks because it's got a wide middle. And then
but that's in some ways the hallmark of good design.
Oh, it's clever. Yeah.
You don't see that. Yeah.
And I'll tell you, as silly, it doesn't have enough ports, but the little port thing that pops out to get the ports is you just want to keep playing with it. I mean, it really is nicely.
And I'm sure that will do wonders for the hinge. But this hinge thing is funny because Apple was the company that would never do that because that's just something that can snap off.
We'll see. We'll see. Yeah. That time will tell. I didn't buy it because I thought I'd snap the whole thing in half.
Sure.
I mean, it feels it's thin.
Yeah.
Thin.
Well, okay. Well, it's not for me, and I
anything else announced at Macworld that caught your eye?
All kinds of stuff that I think is important. Again, and I'm not trying to turn this into I know people are already rolling their eyes saying, "Oh, geez, talking about the Mac," but there was a lot of important stuff at Macworld that I think will affect a lot of Windows users. So, for example, iPhone 1.1.3, which is this big update we've been waiting for. Again, I feel that the iPhone is flawed, but this I think is enough to sort of put it over the edge. I had sort of given it a 3-star review last summer, and I think this kind of tilts this, along with the other improvements that have occurred in the past few months. Kind of tilts the scales toward the 4.0 mark. I think this is nice. So specifically in my case, one of the things I'd really like to have is the ability to get rid of stuff from the home screen. Frankly, I'm not looking to add too much, but I would like to get rid of stuff. I don't want to mistakenly hit YouTube or
Well, that's what I did because you have now Pages, so you can slide those off, and that's what I did. I created a back page where all that crap is.
Yeah, and it's funny because my iPhone now more closely resembles what the stock iPod Touch looked like a few months ago.
Simpler.
Very few icons on the front because I really I just use a few of these things.
I started adding those web apps, and one of my complaints about web apps was that, you have to go to the browser. Now they're on the front page. By the way, somebody went to my message boards, the Twit message boards, and said, if you put a proper ping image in the root directory of your website,
it will turn up as the icon.
Yes, and so if you now
you can see that on a few of the sites, depending on which ones you save as a web clip.
It's really great.
You'll see that. Yeah, it is great.
So I did it for all my sites. I created a little 57 by 57.
Yeah. So it's funny. Most of the stuff that I access on via Safari on the iPhone on a regular basis. We're talking about a very small group of things, right?
Right.
Because a lot of the stuff I want to do online is Google-oriented stuff, like my email and calendar. And of course, now I can do that through the native application. So I'm not really doing that stuff on the web, per se. It's funny. I at first put a bunch of web clips on the homepage, and then over time, and I realized I really don't need these here. And I removed most of them because I just access a lot of stuff. But Google Reader would be a good example of something that I go to fairly frequently when I'm on the iPhone. It's nice because I can be at if I'm out and about doing whatever, and I've got some time to kill, I can sit there and flick through some stories that I might have in RSS, and I like that. Google News and so forth.
Yeah.
So that stuff's nice.
There's a Google page for iPhone, which I use, that gives you access to all four of those things in a very iPhone-like interface. In the New York Times, have you seen nytimesriver.com?
No.
It's very interesting. I don't know why the Times is doing it, because it's free. Okay. I guess that's the new Times, isn't it? But they've made a page, they say for all mobiles, but it works wonderfully on the iPhone. And so I read the Times now
this way
on the iPhone. I don't know if it's the complete Times. It sure seems like it. It includes even the Metro.
Oh, it's enough of it. This is great.
Plenty.
Yeah, this is nice. This is the type of thing I'm talking about. The iPhone, I don't know what, someone will come up with a pithy phrase for this, but this is sort of like convenient computing. You're standing in line maybe, checking out somewhere, or you're sitting in the car waiting for your kids to come out of a building, or you've got a couple of minutes. You don't know how much time you have, but you have a couple of minutes. And the iPhone is a great device to pull out, get on the web real quick and do something. If it's triaging email or browsing the headlines on New York Times, like this site that you just mentioned, fantastic. This is great. So
that's exactly how I use it. And I don't actually use it mostly as an iPod. I rarely use it to make phone calls. So.
Yeah. No, it's funny. I actually used my iPhone on the way home from France on a plane to watch some TV shows that I had to purchase from iTunes, and that worked fine. It was nice.
Yeah.
It's nice.
It passes the time. I do it in the gym.
Yeah, same thing. I mean, I use a.
One thing that kind of surprised me, there was so much attention paid to Apple TV 2, and I kept wanting to stand up and say, Xbox Live has done this for a long time now.
Well, the other thing that was, you had to really be paying attention, and I have to say, if I had been there at the show, I'm not sure I would have understood that this is what was happening. But, Apple TV 2, as they're calling it, is just Apple TV. I mean, they haven't changed the hardware at all. I mean, to the point that they haven't even upgraded the hard drive size, which I have to say is kind of astonishing. But they've dropped the price, which is fine. I'm surprised by this a little bit. I mean, I worry about the app.
I thought they added a bigger drive. I mean, maybe I'm wrong.
No, the base one's still 40, and I want to say the next one up is 160 gig.
Yeah, I think that's what happened. They went from 80 to 160, maybe.
Okay, I'm not sure, but the 229 model is 40 gig.
Yeah, that's the base model.
Whatever. Yeah. I gotta do something about upgrading that someday. But
I actually bought before they offered the 160, which they do now. I bought it from weeknews.com. They do the upgrade for you.
Oh, they did the modification for you. So I know there are instructions out there on the web, and you can probably put anything you want in there. And
Paul, don't do it.
Yeah.
I tried it. I tried it, and I hosed my first Apple TV.
The thing is, it's a pressure cooker. It
is.
It is the hottest component in my little cabinet, and I'm nervous about it.
It's exactly what happened.
I check on it occasionally.
Yep.
I bought an HDMI switcher. I want to say it was from Extreme Mac, maybe, or one of those kind of Mac-oriented stores, and it's styled to look and be shaped just like the Apple TV. So I put it under there. But I'm going to come out one day and it's going to be completely melted.
Yeah.
I can tell.
Yeah.
Apple TV is really hot.
It is the hottest component I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And that's what happened, I think, when I took it apart. It has, little pads. It has a lot of kind of thermal, modifications. And I don't think I got it back right. And the thing is noisy and never worked right again.
Okay.
Yeah. Buy it if you need 160.
Just buy one, yeah.
Some people, if the streaming works for you.
I don't find that the streaming works very well, but I don't have an N router in here.
Yeah, you need
and
N.
maybe that's what I'm going to do. Yeah, I don't have G.
So if you have N that works,
I sync stuff constantly, so I'll come in here.
Right.
Yeah,
that's how I do it too, by the way, because I don't even want to wait for the buffering and all that. But now, what do you think? Do you buy shows on Xbox Live and rent movies?
No. But
I do.
Oh, but here's the think about the many different ways you can do this. I'm intrigued by the way that they went the movie route. I think renting movies from your your couch in the den is the obvious thing to do. Coming back into the office, doing it on the computer, syncing it with the device, which is what you would really kind of have to do before. It's a lot of work, to get a movie. Most people have cable, and you can do on demand, and it's kind of instant, and the price is the same. So it's sort of unclear in some ways what the advantage is here, I guess. But the only reason I don't do it on the Xbox is the Xbox we have in our den does not have a hard drive. So downloading things directly to that machine, I have to put a hard drive in there. But what I do is I rent movies from Amazon, and those work fine on the Xbox. So they play on the TV. But again, this is me walking into my office like a jerk, sitting down, doing the stuff on the computer, making sure it's shared, and you can stream it to the Xbox.
Yeah.
And that works fine.
Yeah. I've bought shows. I bought Studio 60. The problem is really the show choice is very limited. And I did rent movies, and they're more expensive than Apple is planning, but they do have HD movies, but they take a long time.
You're talking about on the Xbox. Yeah.
And they take a long time to download.
But now you can, I assume you can play it as it's downloading.
Well, you can once enough downloads, but it's big.
I don't really I have to say, the Xbox Blade interface, that UI that they have, is so significantly better than what they had before in the old Xbox, and it is arguably better than most of the other video game stuff that's out there. But for content like movies and TV shows, it's not really that great.
It's not as good as Apple TV, I agree.
Oh, no, not even close. Yeah. And what they showed off for this update, which, I assume is coming a week or more away. Didn't they say February?
They said 2 weeks.
Checking.
It's so funny. I do too. Every day, every night, I get.
Yeah.
Is it there yet?
I've spent a lot of time playing with the purchasing and rental options. I actually blogged about this the other day. And this irritates me. And again, I don't mean to get off on another sidetrack, but Steve Jobs talks about different language tracks, and which to my knowledge don't actually exist, and closed captioning, which is important to me because my son is deaf and requires closed captioning.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, well, he has a cochlear implant, so he can hear, but he doesn't hear as well as we hear. So
that's so cool. Was he born deaf, or did he?
No, he got really sick when he was about a year old.
Oh, that's sad.
And became deaf. Yeah. Well, I mean, I have to say, it's one of the cases where technology has really worked out.
The cochlear implants are amazing. I think I've heard they work better with somebody who did hear at first, but he was very young when he lost his hearing.
He was very young, which is actually best case for getting a cochlear implant.
Oh, interesting. Interesting.
Yeah. So he actually has two now. So a year ago, whatever it was, we got a second one. But anyway, when it comes for TV, he has captioning on. There's actually a movie theater in our area where you can. They'll give you a little. It's like a reflector shield, and you sit in the audience, and it reflects off the back wall, and it gives you captioning in the theater.
Neat. I didn't know that. Wow.
Captioning there, yeah. So, but one of the missing pieces for him is I can't purchase or now rent much content on iTunes because none of it has closed captioning.
Interesting.
Now, they're kind of pushing this as a feature, and it's very hard to find, but there are a very, very limited number of movies on iTunes right now that do have closed captioning. And I'm not saying this is Apple's fault. I'm not sure, but I think we can give them the benefit of the doubt and say possibly the movies come to them from the studios and that it's their responsibility to caption them or not.
I'm sure
or whatever.
That's the case, yeah.
That could be the case. But, he did stand up there in the keynote, showed Ratatouille with an alternate language version for French and with closed captioning, and that does not exist. If you buy or rent that movie from iTunes, there's no closed captioning and there's no alternate language track. And I find that to be very disingenuous.
Well, maybe that's a feature though when Apple TV 2 comes out.
It exists now. You can.
I'm saying there may be a new Ratatouille available.
Okay, maybe, but this was actually on the iPhone. So
they've done this in the. He showed it on the iPhone.
Yeah.
Oh, never mind.
Now, the technology exists in the iPhone for these features to be, brought to the forefront. They are there. I finally found a movie. The Italian Job is an example of a movie that does have closed captioning, and sure enough, you can enable it on the iPhone. You don't do it via a button on. The language button never appears because there are no alternate language tracks. On this movie, at least, but you can go into the settings and you can turn on captioning, and sure enough, it does work. It's slow, to come on and whatever, but it works. So it is kind of out there, but it's so sporadically implemented. I it's tough because this is one of those things, being into technology and doing a lot of movie renting and buying online. I've always wanted to be able to do this for Mark, and it's just not possible. I do a lot of, ripping of DVDs where I sort of manually encode the captioning in there for him. So I do that for children's movies.
So you can do that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Handbrake does that. And the problem is you can't turn it on and off, at least as far as I know. In fact, for all I know, this stuff is out there. I don't know. But right. I'm going to be investigating this. But
if you create an MPEG-4 file with Handbrake, it's either going to have captions or not.
Yeah.
You need a
so
DVD
I do that,
style.
for kids' movies. So, I mean, we go away with the kids. I don't want to bring a stack of DVDs. I want to bring, just the stuff on the computer. So, unfortunately, I have to sort of manually do that right now. But anyway, hopefully that'll be something that comes.
I have to say, Apple, especially with Leopard, really takes the award for accessibility. Their Leopard speech now is very, very good. They're very aware of accessibility. I think it's probably that
Apple will be the company that does this.
If it's possible, and clearly it is, I think they'll.
Well, they built it into QuickTime first. It's been sort of on a slow boil.
Good, and I hope they do. I think that's really important that you include that. We did the screensavers for years without closed captioning, and got a lot of complaints. It really does limit your audience.
Yeah.
And as soon as we could afford it, we started doing closed captioning. It makes a big difference.
Right.
I think it's an important thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so do I. Obviously.
Obviously. Now you did a review, and I read your review on the super site for Windows of Office 2008. You want to?
Yeah.
I mean, I know this is so far pretty much an Apple show, so we'll get to Windows in a second, but
there's some Windows stuff. Well,
this is a Microsoft product, at least. Microsoft had a big booth there, I want to tell you.
Sure.
Big presence.
And I had, I have heard more than one person describe Office on the Mac as the best version of Office ever. And I don't know what versions of Office they're using, but I don't find that to be the case.
I agree.
Whether you care, if you're a Windows user that maybe would like to buy a Mac and one of those things that you need is Office, obviously you can get Office or not get Office. There are other alternatives. But I don't feel that when, Office is unsurprisingly, perhaps since it comes from Microsoft, certainly is not a reason to switch. As a Mac user, if I were a Mac user, I would be a little distressed by Office because it's not a very good Macintosh application at all. And I don't quite get what's going on there. I mean, Word works fine, which is the thing that I would use the most and do use the most, those rare times that I do use it. But, there's lots of floating palettes, and Entourage is a disaster. I don't know what the heck this thing is. It's like a throwback to the mid-1990s, Excel and PowerPoint are fine. They all have their own little deal. But clearly the big thing this time around was just getting it to run natively on Intel. Right. And I'm sure that was a big engineering effort.
It had to be done. In fact, as Steve Jobs pointed out, the last major application.
Yeah. Congratulations. You came in last. So it's
that was
there.
necessary.
And well, no, that's great. So it runs fine. I can't say that it runs dramatically faster than Office 2004.
That's true, yeah.
But it runs fine. The gallery stuff is kind of interesting, but I really feel that even within the context of the Apple UI conventions, where you have that system-wide menu, that they could have done the whole ribbon thing, and it would have been really effective and wonderful, and it would have been a big deal. And I think what they did sort of reeks of half-assery. I don't know how else to call it.
I agree. And I think that's a bad time for it to be that way because, frankly, the Mac word processing certainly has become crowded with a lot of very good choices. Now Apple's competing with Pages and Numbers, which I think are competitive products. Microsoft, this is the time Microsoft should be stepping up.
Well, Pages and Numbers, and let's not forget Keynote, which is
better
arguably
than PowerPoint.
Better.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
You have that. And of course, and even beyond Pages, with the built-in tools that are in Mac OS X, you can load many Office documents, rather Word documents, fine. And of course, there are other alternatives, Mariner Write, and even some, open source stuff and so forth. So there's a lot out there. I don't know. This is. It used to be that Office was required, and if Office is required for you, if you need, Exchange support, for example, and are sadly forced to use Entourage on the Mac, at least it's there.
Yeah.
So, for
thank goodness they keep developing it because it's still as far as I know, the number one Mac app.
I guess.
I think it is.
I suppose that way. I wouldn't surprise me. I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's not the disaster it was a while back. You remember? I don't remember what version it was. Office 6, I think. Word 6. Where it was basically the Windows version, running on an emulator or something. So it's not that bad. It's not. I shouldn't say it's not bad. It's not that it's bad. It's just that it does nothing to take advantage of the Mac. Nor does it take advantage of any of the innovative stuff they did with Office 2007. Right. And that being the case, I don't quite get what the point is. But
hey, did you see there have been screenshots floating around of the new Windows?
Windows 7, yeah.
Windows 7. Well, we just got Vista. This is kind of surprising.
It is kind of surprising. And there was also a rumor this week that Windows 7 is going to ship a little more quickly than was previously suspected, so that maybe it will come toward the end of 2009 instead of sometime in 2010. And I don't have any opinion or inside knowledge about that one way or the other. I can say that I don't have the build. I've seen the screenshots. It's Vista, and that shouldn't surprise anybody, because even if this thing comes out and looks dramatically different from Vista, which I don't believe that it will, anyone who's done any beta testing of Windows over the years will tell you that these first milestone builds, what they call the M1 build, always looks like the previous version.
Right. The last thing you write is the GUI.
Yeah. I mean, the one I always remember was funny for a long time. Microsoft had shipped a build after Christmas one year of what became Windows Me, which of course everyone hated. But the first M1 build that came out that year, probably 99, I guess, or 98, was wonderful and stable, and it looked just like Windows 98, but it had all these sort of internal plumbing changes. So it was just stable and reliable, and it worked really well. And it was kind of this weird, pseudo halfway point between what was and what was going to be. But in some ways, that's what this looks like. So it looks like Windows Vista, And in the screenshots, you see some Windows 7 terminology instead of Windows Vista. You see some very small changes. There's a little gadget for customizing the icons that appear in the tray. There's some work being done around the display scaling effect. You can do the DPI scaling in Windows Vista, and they've made it more scalable, I guess. You can go from smaller to largest over 4 steps instead of just doing 2 as you can in Vista, that kind of thing. So we're talking really minor, changes. Nothing.
Do you think it's a rush project in response to what is essentially seen by most people as the failure of Vista?
I think it could be turning into that. My understanding was that Windows 7 was going to be this big deal, and obviously Windows Vista has not taken off in the way that Microsoft had expected or wanted. So there may be a need internally to get this thing to come out as what Microsoft would call sort of a Vista R2, that interim release, The only problem I have with that is that if they don't do some, exciting stuff, it's going to be a little bit too much like Vista. And of course, it's Windows, so people are always going to upgrade, and, they'll get new computers and they get the new system, and, eventually everyone will be running this thing. But if Windows 7 turns into Vista R2, it becomes that much less exciting,
Right.
On the other hand, the guy running the show now in Windows, Steven Sinofsky, who comes over here from the Mac world, from the Office world, he has a long history of doing exactly this kind of upgrade. I mean, that Office for years was very subtle, the changes every time, and in fact, they used to arbitrarily change the UI just so they could tell at a glance what version you were running. The changes were so subtle. Right?
Right.
And, it wasn't until Office 2007
right.
That they did something major.
Right.
Now, to be fair to Sinofsky, of course, he was in charge of that as well. So they did do something major on his watch. So I don't know. I'm interested to see how this goes. This build does not represent what this thing will be. So I think it's too early to say if we're looking at something that's representative, of what the final version is going to be. I don't think that we are. So if I get a chance, I'll try to find this thing and take a look at it. But I'm not. Clearly, it's not anything dramatic.
You said there were high hopes for Windows 7 and what it would be. What would it be? Would it be that database file system that they were talking about?
Absolutely, yeah, that kind of thing. I mean,
so a lot of the stuff that they had hoped to put in Longhorn/Vista.
Yeah. In that kind of scenario, you think of Vista as the foundation. They did the foundational work, and then in the next version, they can kind of go nuts on the stuff that builds on top of that.
Get that stuff in that they couldn't get in the first time around.
Yeah. And some of the stuff is just passage of time. The other thing that's happened, I think, is bad for Vista that a lot of people don't talk about. I mean, you can look at sales, you can look at, people are picking XP and all that, but, there's a lot of technology in Vista around beautiful display possibilities and, UIs and things for applications, and you just don't see this stuff out there. Vista was supposed to be the beginning of a new generation of applications, and there just isn't a lot of that stuff. We always use the New York Times reader as the ultimate example of that because it is beautiful and it does take advantage of those special things that are in Vista. But there's not a lot more of that stuff going around, is there?
Right.
Where you can zoom in on the text. And, there was back when Office 2007 was going to be Vista only, one of the demos they did was that you would hold your cursor out in the scroll bar. And as you scroll down, you would see a pop-up preview of each page as you were scrolling by it.
That's a hard thing to do, actually.
Gorgeous looking, and it's not in there because, of course, Office 2007 is something that runs on previous versions of Windows as well.
You need a pretty heavy duty machine to do something like that.
Yeah, well, or at least some low, or graphic processing that's occurring on the graphics card.
Right.
So that stuff's in Vista. It's possible. This kind of application can ship now, but haven't.
Right. Right.
So Windows 7 might benefit just from the fact that it comes out a few years after Vista, and even if it looks a lot like Vista, one of the other benefits is that at least by that point there'll be some stuff that take advantage of the new technology.
Yeah.
I don't know.
When I first called you this afternoon, you mentioned you were shopping for a laptop.
Yeah. That's true.
What are you looking at?
You actually interrupted me.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, no.
That's okay.
That's one of the most fun things, by the way, in the world to do is to say, I've got the budget,
to be fair, I was interrupted yesterday. I was doing this yesterday. I was kind of tooling around in my
It's okay. Draw
laptop.
it out. Draw it out. This is foreplay.
Well, no, this is relevant to the story.
Okay.
And I got an email from somebody at Microsoft who said, hey, we're doing this thing with Dell and with Project Red, the world.
That's the Bono thing where you.
Yeah. Did you want to talk to somebody? I said, yeah, sure. And it was funny because I was actually on the Dell website kind of specking on a laptop. And now they've introduced these two new versions of these laptops that have, that are part of this Product Red program. And it's interesting because it's Red and Microsoft and Dell, and they're all working together. So on the Dell side, what you see are 4 products that are branded with the Product Red, the color scheme and the logos and all that stuff. Microsoft has created a new version of Windows Vista Ultimate that has Product Red, stuff in it, screensavers, desktops, Windows sidebar gadgets, and so forth. And you can only get it with these Dell computers. And they claim that's the only way you're ever going to be able to get it. You can't buy it, or you can't. HP can't come out with Product Red stuff and get this. Is what they told me. So, Dell exclusive. And there's no premium, but when you buy one of these things, the donation goes to I think it's called the Global Fund, through Red, which is working to, offset the devastation from the AIDS pandemic in Africa.
Right. So you're looking now. They're going to do a desktop, I think, and a laptop, right?
Yeah, there's two. So there's a desktop, the XPS One, which is their all-in-one kind of iMac-like widescreen system. There's 2 notebooks. The 13-inch, I think it's M1330, which is the one I was looking at.
That's a sweet notebook.
Yeah, they have them at Best Buy now, and that was what kind of touched me off to this might be the right size and weight and all that stuff.
Right.
Seeing the thing in the store, I thought, okay, this is interesting.
It's nicely done, yeah.
Yeah.
And the widescreen, right? Yeah, I like the widescreen.
Widescreen, yeah. There's a 15-inch version, the 1530, and then they have an all-in-one printer. All of which are branded like this, yeah. So, when you called, I had written up some stuff. I got some screenshots of it that I posted today, this new version of Vista. And, so I went back and I started pricing them up. But, it's interesting because you don't pay extra for this. But when you buy, the laptops, for example, $50 goes to the Global Fund. And that money does, it's not part of that. It all ends up going straight into, funding for this stuff. The XPS One, I believe it's $80. And for the printer, I think it's $5. The printer is pretty inexpensive. I think it actually is on sale right now for $100.
Wow. $100. Wow.
Yeah. So they're going to do Super Bowl advertising for the first time together around this as well. And I believe this is the first Super Bowl ads for all of these guys. And then, of course, the product red stuff is interesting. And there's a lot of that stuff out there. A lot of companies involved. Apple has done that with the iPod. I think it's the Nano and the Shuffle come in product red versions, which are that sort of deep red color. Same deal. You buy one of those and a certain amount of money goes toward the global fund. So it's nice. And, from the discussion we had yesterday, clearly this stuff has been super successful. They were telling me that previous to them creating this red program that they had, raised a certain amount of money. I think it was something like, $5 or $6 million. But Product Red has already raised, I think it was almost $60 million, if I remember the figure correctly. Which is about 10 times what it was able to do privately. So
that's neat.
It's been a huge success. No surprise given the way we spend money in the United States, especially.
Well, it's kind of fun because it doesn't cost more, and you get something unique. And
well, we're already buying this stuff. Right. It gives everyone a chance to do something nice. Yeah, it's kind of a win-win, I would say.
So you think you get a 1330 or a 15th?
I think so. Yeah.
You have to wait for Valentine's. Isn't it like Valentine's Day though? No, I think you do. I think you have to wait.
I'd like to have it before I go on my next trip, so I can't wait till Valentine's Day. But
maybe they'll offer. You're. Wait a minute. What am I saying?
For me.
You're Paul Thurrott.
I'm buying. Paul,
what am I saying?
I was thinking more along the lines of I'm buying it for myself. But okay.
I bought a bunch of the red iPods.
You did?
Yeah. Well, as a gift when we shut down the production in Toronto, as a gift to the production team who'd worked really hard for 3 years.
That's nice.
And it felt good, and they're really cute, and I had them engraved. Call for help, Toronto, and that was a nice gift because people get it and they feel good because it's both unique and it's helping charity. I think it makes sense to do it for Valentine's. But if they advertise it on the Super Bowl, that's February 5th. Maybe they'll have it by then.
Oh, so you can order these things now.
Oh.
And it just started today.
Oh, cool. Oh, that's neat.
Yeah, you can actually order them already. And I think it, on the laptops, it looks like they'll come on the 31st or something, starting on the 31st. So, you can actually do it already. You can already do this. So if you want to look at these things, you can go to Dell.com/joinred.
Oh, neat. Let me take a look.
Yeah, and actually that loads some animations and things. But you can also just go to Dell's webpage and browse their notebooks, and you'll see that they're listed in there as well.
Cool.
Yeah.
Hey, now I'm tempted. Can you get it with? There's no. You can't get it with XP, can you?
No. Yeah. No. See, that's the thing. It comes with this special version of Vista,
the red Vista,
which is actually a little bit of a problem because, of course, Vista Ultimate is the most expensive version of Vista. So you're kind of opting into the more expensive product there. You can't get it.
Well, that's all right.
Yeah.
You're an Ultimate kind of guy.
Well, I wouldn't be.
When people ask me,
spending your own money, it changes the equation.
Yeah, no, when people ask me, I absolutely say get Home Professional, or if you're business, get Business Pro, but don't get Ultimate. There's nothing in Ultimate you need.
No.
So let's do an Audible pick, and then we'll get your software pick and your tip of the week. What do you think?
I can do that.
What did you listen to? Besides watching those movies on your iPod, what did you listen to on the way to France?
I listen to a lot of things. This is another little side story. People occasionally ask me, what do you listen to for podcasts?
Oh yeah, do you?
And I do, but I don't listen to any tech podcasts.
No, we get enough of that in our daily life. I bet you. Yeah. I'm gonna guess you listen to NPR.
I do.
Yep, Fresh Air and.
No, it's funny. The only one I subscribe to is one you might not have heard of. It's called On Point.
Oh, I haven't heard of that.
With Tom Ashbrook. He's actually they do the show from Boston. WBUR is the NPR station here in Boston. Tom Ashbrook is fantastic, and it's just about current events.
Cool. I'm gonna have to subscribe.
Always just great gifts, great topics. Yes, it's awesome. It's awesome. I listen to that one a lot. I listen to some travel podcasts. One thing I do a lot now, and I love this stuff. Last year when we took the family to Rome on a vacation, I looked around for Rome podcasts, and I found a Rome HD video podcast that is gorgeous. It's just basically set up a camera in the square pointed at the site and stand there for 2 minutes and just take video of it in HD. And
wow, that's a great idea.
So there's one of those for Rome, and there's we're going to London this year in February, and there's one of those for London as well. It's absolutely beautiful.
What are they called?
The London one, well, I don't subscribe to the Rome one anymore, but actually, if you go to on iTunes, they have an HD podcast section now, so you'll see it.
That's for the new Apple TV, yeah.
Yeah, but the London one is called London Landscape TV. There's a version that's in 720p. And again, it's, here we are in Covent Gardens, set up camera, here's some people walking by, it's 2 minutes and, or whatever.
Is there commentary? Is there talking? Is there anything?
Nope. There's some text that comes on that explains what you're looking at.
Very clever.
It's just like being there. And, for someone who is going to travel to someplace that maybe they've never been, or in my case with London, I haven't been there in a while. This is fantastic, because you can look at something and say, oh yeah, okay, I know this place, or there's some place I've never been and I'm going to want to go check this out. And so I do a lot of that kind of stuff, I guess. But I listen to some audiobook stuff. I watched, some TV shows that I had purchased from iTunes as well. So
can you give us an audiobook pick, since it is time to mention audible.com/Windows?
Yes, I can.
Yes.
Now, this is it seems to be a trend lately, but this is one I literally just started listening to, but it's called Duma Key, and it's by Stephen King again.
I don't know this one. I never heard of this one.
It's brand new. It literally just came out on Tuesday.
Oh, cool.
And it takes place in Florida, and it's basically about a guy who had some awful accident at a construction site, lost his arm, lost his wife, lost his family, moves down to Florida, and then freaky stuff starts happening. So
of course it does.
Of course it does. Yeah.
Of course it does.
This is one of those books. Stephen King, of course, is all over the map, but this book has reviewed really, really well, and I've got high hopes for it. But like I said, I'm just at the beginning. But so far, so good. So,
dang you! Now I have to add another book to my list. I swear.
Looks good.
I have the longest wish list ever on Audible, mostly because of the shows, and I get recommendations from all my friends. And gosh, there's so many great books. It's really neat.
The one I wanted to get was the guy that wrote The Omnivore's Dilemma.
Oh yes, what's his name?
Pollan.
Michael Pollan.
He has a new book, and I don't believe it's on Audible yet. I just searched for it again today.
No, and they just have the Botany of Desire and Omnivores of Desire.
Yeah, I'm going to see how that goes. So anyway, that looks good too.
He's great. I've actually been to a lecture of his.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's really great.
I love his, he had written a long form article for the New York Times Magazine, and I think that work went into this new book, right. But he has this kind of saying, he says, eat food,
Right.
But what he means is, of course, eat real food, not,
and eat locally if you can.
Yeah.
Easier in Sonoma County out here than it is in Dedham, but.
Well, I don't know. You forget I'm married to a hippie. And,
so all local organic, huh?
Yeah. I suspect that we eat better in my house than almost everywhere in this country. My wife is.
And my wife's the same way. Yeah, my wife's
organic
the same
farm,
way.
and it's weird.
Same way. Yeah, if you haven't read, so there's 2 books now. We've got Duma Key. If you want the.
Well, I don't know if the second one is like I said.
Thing.
Omnivore's Dilemma
is
that's on Audible,
great.
And that's an excellent book. And if you haven't read that or listened to it, do it. But that author has a new book out, and I can't think of the title, but
catch up with you can catch up if you haven't read Michael Pollan before. Read The Botany of Desire, and I think Omnivore's Dilemma is fascinating. Wonderful book.
Yeah.
So there you go. You get 3 recommendations for one. All you got to do is pick one, and you can listen to it for free. Just go to audible.com/Windows and sign up. You'll get a coupon for a free book thanks to a Twit and Audible. And I tell you, I think this is a product that sells itself. Once you start listening, you just love it. 45,000 plus titles, new ones all the time. Audible. audible.com/Windows. A great thing to fill your computer, your MP3 player. You can burn them into CDs too. It's just a great way to read while you're driving or flying or exercising. Audible.com/Windows. We thank them for their support of Windows
the horror.
Weekly. The horror. So it's time for you to go back to work. Tip and software pick. Which do you want to do first?
I don't care. I can do either one.
We'll start with a tip.
No, let's do the other one.
All right.
No,
you see, I gave you the chance to choose. Software first.
Okay. So last time I mentioned, a digital media player.
Yes.
And what was interesting was I think within minutes of getting off of the of Skype with you, I discovered another alternative, and I have been playing with that ever since. And I had it on my computer when we went on the trip, and I was playing movies with it, and I'm kind of testing it. And it may, in some ways, actually be better than the VLC player that we talked about last time. And it's called GOM Player, like GOM.
Mm-hmm. I never heard of it.
I had never heard of it either, and I actually now cannot recall how I ran into this. But like I said, it was literally right after we talked, and it's yet another lightweight, audio and video player. But the thing that's really interesting about this is the way it handles codecs. And to test this, I actually installed a bare version of Vista on a laptop and just installed this player. And then I threw all of the audio and video files I have at it to see if it would ever need, to download anything or do anything. And so far, it's just kind of handled everything. Wow. So
does it download them, or does it?
Well, I guess it can download them, but actually it comes with a bunch of the stuff just built in. So things like DivX and MPEG-4 and all that stuff, it just kind of works.
And they get around, I'm looking at the site, they get around the license issues by sending you to a site. If it doesn't have a commercial codec, it'll send you a site where you can get it. Yeah. So that's cool.
So, I mean, this is neat. I mean, the only thing I don't think that it does well is play DVDs, but of course, Vista already has a DVD player built in, and chances are you already have that sort of thing elsewhere. But as far as playing hard drive based content, this works great. So I think one of the concerns I have is that we've talked about H.264 before, and this isn't true on the Mac at all, but on Windows. The Apple applications are not particularly efficient, and if you're playing H.264 through QuickTime on a plane, on battery power, on a laptop, it can gobble up, the battery life pretty quick. So I'm always looking for something that's more efficient in this fashion, and GOM Player appears to be pretty good. So,
wow, I never heard of it. Yeah. That's a great tip.
No, again, neither have I, but until recently. But
yeah, very cool. All right, now you have to do a tip.
Okay. I have a million of them, Leo. Well, I sort of looked around and I was trying to think, what would be the big thing. And I think one of the things that might be confusing to people, and this is true, this sadly has been true for many Windows versions, is, as we upgrade from, 98 to 2000 to XP to Vista now, Microsoft has changed Windows Explorer pretty dramatically every time. And the sad thing about this, unfortunately, is that in many ways, as we go forward, we lose some things. One of the things that was really horrible in Windows XP was that the windows would often not maintain, the way they were the last time that you were there. So you might open documents and all of a sudden all the icon styles are different, all the, the view style is different. And this is unfortunately something that still happens a little bit in Vista, but it's better, but it's not, been completely fixed. But one of the things that they did this time around was they completely rewrote Explorer. It's completely different than it was before. It has this new kind of sidebar with favorite links in it, the folder menu that can come up. But I think the one thing that people don't really see a lot in here, and this is the thing I wanted to discuss this time around, was that if you look at the Organize menu in a Windows Explorer menu, in a Windows Explorer window, rather, in Windows Vista, there's a bunch of options in there for changing the view of the window you're looking at that you're probably just not even aware exists. Now, there's the obvious stuff. You can change the icon views, right? You can switch between all the different icon views, and that's cool. But the other things that you have in there, which are really neat, is one, there's a preview pane you can turn on. And that's not something that you're necessarily going to want in every single window. But, in the Pictures folder, for example, you might want that on because as you highlight individual images, you'll see them in the preview pane, which is now over on the right instead of on the top as it used to be in Windows XP. But it's nice. And it also works with certain documents. So you can select a Word document, you can select a text document, and it will actually preview in this pane, and you can see it without opening it. Similar to, what is it on Leopard, Quick Look or Quick View.
What do I set it? Extra large icons? What do I set it to see that? What
The preview pane?
Yeah.
No.
turn
All
on
you have
the
to
preview
all
pane.
right. So all right. So in other words, you open up a window and there's some stuff in there.
Yep.
You click on the organize button in the toolbar.
Oh, okay. Organize. Okay.
And then you go to layout.
Got it.
And then you can turn on preview pane, which is off.
Neato.
Yeah.
Neato. And then you can see stuff. Oh,
Yeah.
that's very cool.
It works. It's nice. I would say Windows and pictures and documents especially would be the big ones.
Now, I have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
And this is actually my pet peeve with Vista. When I have a number of podcast folders, obviously, and it sees there's MP3s in there, and so automatically goes to an MP3 display, and the status bar, it gives me artist, album, genre, rating. It takes away things like size, modified, which are actually things I need.
Leo, I was just going to get to that.
Oh, I want to fix it. If you fix it, I will shake your hand heartily, mister.
Okay, so there are two things you can do to fix that.
Okay.
One is Vista, like XP, has preset folder customizations.
Yeah. So
if you right-click in the folder, in empty area, you'll see a customize this folder option that appears in the pop-up menu.
Yes.
Now, there's only a few choices there.
I can change it from music details.
You can change it. You can do that. Yeah. Now, that's one thing you can do. But the other thing you can do, and I actually do this a lot for certain folder types. One of the things I have to do is maybe I'll update my website, and then I have to go to the folder and select those files that have been updated, and I need to upload them to a directory in a server. And what I want to do is sort the folder by date modified so that the most recently modified files are at the top.
Do that all the time, yeah.
The problem is the date modified column is not always available depending on what the style,
the type.
The type is.
Yeah.
Right. So what you can do to make that happen is right click in that column heading bar where it says name, date modified, type size, depending on what you're looking at. If you right click, you'll see a list of things that you can add, but also a more button. And this is probably what you're looking for. And then they'll give you a list of the things.
Look at all that stuff
that you can, And you'll, again, type is one, for example. You have to really go down this list. It's huge, but you can go in.
It has EXIF information for photos. It has.
It depends on what you're looking at.
It's just really smart about what's in there. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So if you're missing something, so for example, maybe it's set up for, a music folder, but you want something, one other thing. Whatever that might be.
And it will remember that if I close the folder, it'll come back that way?
Yes, it will.
Actually, what I just did is I set all enclosed. I went to the podcast folder and set all enclosed folders. Oh, and now it says Windows Explorer has stopped working.
Well, thank you for listening.
It worked really well. No, it's reset itself.
Windows 7 is coming out in 18 months. Everything will be fine.
But no, the good news is I was able to set all of the subfolders to just simple file type instead of MP3 type, because in this case, I really do want to view them as files, not MP3s.
So the other, just quickly, some of the other things I think that people might be interested in trying, and again, this requires a certain, ability to change. If you remember in Windows XP and it's in Vista too, when you open up my computer or computer in Vista, the view style is very different from what it used to be. The icons are displayed in a tiles view, but they're also grouped, in Vista. So you see things like hard drives are grouped together at the top, and then devices with removable storage are grouped under that. So they're not really listed by drive letter as they used to be. They're now grouped into groups, I guess, that are similar for some reason. So you can actually do this. I do this in my documents folder. So in my own documents folder, I actually group by type. And what that does is it puts all the folders together at the top under folders. It puts all the Word documents together under Word documents. And then it puts all the text documents together under text documents. And it kind of just creates these little segregated groups. And in my case, that helps me organize things in my head, because I know maybe in one case I'm looking for a text file. The text files are all together. I don't have to sort through the whole document folder. I can just look to that group, and there they are together. The one thing I don't do, and I suspect nobody does, but the other thing you can do is you could also use stacking, which is one of those hidden files. So instead of grouping, you can stack by type. And what that would do is it actually runs a search, and then it creates stacks, which are sort of virtual folders of different file types. And depending on the folder you're looking at, depending on the content, you can see all kinds of crazy stuff there. But
now, where do I set it to stacks? How do I do that?
You right-click on the folder and you choose Stack By, and then you choose a, type, for example, or
Cool. That's really neat.
Yeah. Now, what's interesting, there's all kinds of stuff you can do with this. This is not a physical location in your on your hard drive. It's actually a saved search, or not in this case, an unsaved search. It's a live search. Right. So if you were to, let's see if I can find one that makes sense. Must be a Microsoft.
That stacking I like it because it goes a long time ago, earlier this month, earlier this week, last week. Today. So these are essentially saved searches. Is that what these are?
Yeah, they can be. Right now they're unsaved searches, but they're there. I mean, this is you can always bring this view up. You can go into any one of these and save it if you would like.
Wow, that's really neat.
Yeah.
See, this is an example. There's so much stuff in Vista.
I know. And
just people don't know it. I didn't know this.
Right. And, depending on how you organize things the way that you work, grouping or stacking might make sense, might make no sense. I think also it depends on a folder by folder basis. I mean, when you go into it might make sense in the pictures folder to, create stacks by date, and then you'll have these things that are very logical for your photos. That might make a lot of sense to you. It's just an option, but it's one of those things that it's kind of in there. People tend not to even realize it's there. And of course you can use Vista every single day and never even come across this. If you don't click in the right place and think to look at it, you might not even know it was there. So,
right.
Interesting.
Very cool. A nice tip. Thank you.
Absolutely.
As usual, Paul Thurrott is the author, the news editor for IT. What's this for? Windows IT Pro.
Some Windows thing.
Yeah. And then he's also the host, the mentor, the chief cook and bottle washer at the Supersite for Windows. WinSupersite.com. You'll find a WinSupersite blog there and Paul's personal blog where he sells his stuff. I
just turned into Paul Sanford and Son online.
I'm coming, Weezy. Internet Nexus, internet-nexus.com. And, of course, his book, Windows Vista Secrets, which I'm sure talks about all this stuff on bookstands, on newsstands and bookstores everywhere. Great to talk to you, Paul. Next week I'm in Vancouver, so we'll take another week off unless we can figure out a way to record in Vancouver. I'm working on that.
Okay.
But we'll be back in 2 weeks with another Windows Weekly. Have a great one. See ya.
Thanks, you too.